All right, folks, I'm just going to get right into it. Talking 2 and 5, we're back. We got the good crew with us. We got Dr. Mesa. He's doing after business hours tonight for us. We got Papa Sean in the house, Coach Joey, and then obviously Matt behind the glass. What is going on, everybody?
We're doing good, man. We are doing good. We got a lot to talk about. Obviously, we're going to touch on some sad news, and in Eagles land that's we're going to talk about, but we're going to pay our respects at the same time. And
Of course.
We got a lot of things happening. Spring training. I actually just came back from a spring training game, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about.
Hell yeah. No, I mean, Sean and I were in the gym just clanging and banging, doing our thing. Kind of talked a lot about some of that. Got some of our thoughts out of the way early, so we have some good talking points to go ahead. But yeah, I mean, the main news around all things Philadelphia has got to be the Kelce retiring. I mean, as soon as he put out the tweet saying like, "Hey, no kegs this time," meeting with the media, everybody knew. You're not calling the media together when you've done these fun, like he's drinking taking shots with Howie or drinking beer and saying, "Oh, I'm having way too much fun. Let's do it again." Like once he called the media, you knew, unfortunately, that he was calling in. But Coach, I mean, I got to say it real quick before we really dive into it. Until we're at like the trade deadline, I'm not convinced. Something happens to Jurgen, something happens in training camp, and they're like, we're at so desperate need for a center. I'm not convinced he's not like, all right, guys, sexy Batman's back. Let's run it.
Yeah, it's tough. You could see that, he was tearing up on what he was saying because obviously it's a sad moment. But at the same time, part of him feels like he's not done. 100% he feels like he's not done. And I was telling my wife, as I was watching the entire thing, with me having a child right now and a son, I said, if he didn't have any kids, I guarantee you he's got 2 to 3 more left in him. 2 to 3 more left in him. Because at that point, when you're not taking care of another human being or a human baby, my body is going to get wrecked. I don't care. If I can't walk tomorrow, oh well. If I can't walk in 10 years, oh well. It is what it is, babe. You still love me. But when you have children that you have to play with, raise, help develop and grow and love and care for, it makes your decision a lot different. And he chose family, and I don't blame him. But, Jake, to your point, a couple shaky snaps from Cam, here and there, a failed tush
He already
push,
said he's going to be at training camp. He said he's going to be there just coaching up the offensive line.
Stay away. He's an addict. No matter what, he can't stay away. He's an addict. So we'll see. There's always going to be a locker open for him until the paperwork is filed, which I don't think he's filed it. So.
No, exactly. Sean?
I think he is absolutely retired. I mean, you saw him. It felt like he was crying from the time he started that press conference to the time he ended. Like, I couldn't believe
he wasn't the only one.
No, and he kept trying to say, like, come on, man. He kept hyping himself up, like, willing himself to finish up his speech. I think he's done. I think this obviously it was a very tough decision, but like you just mentioned, Coach, I mean, he's got, 3 kids now?
Yep.
And there's got to be, at every single offseason, his wife is in his ear like, hey, man, guess what? You just missed steps. You just missed words. You're missing her first day in kindergarten, man. And by the third one, he just said, that's got to be enough. Because you're right. He's still very likely the very best center in all of football. If not, he's still top 2, top 3, right? He's still playing some fantastic football. But no, I absolutely think he is done. I have to move forward. I'm almost relieved to a certain extent because he did it early enough to where we can say, okay, here's the plans. I'm not going to be a part of them. Continue on with this team. I'm not going to hold you hostage throughout any of this offseason this year.
No, exactly. And Doc, I want to get your thoughts on this as well. But you brought up a great point. He is probably the premier center in the NFL right now. How many times in the NFL or in sports in general is somebody able to say, no, I'm out, and not have the league tell him like, hey, no, you're just not wanted anymore? Like, how many times are guys able to retire where it's like they could go almost anywhere and demand whatever they want and are still at the absolute top of their game, but they make the choice where it's not an injury. It's just, you know what? No, like, I'm out of here. I've had, I did my run. I won my games, but I'm calling it. Because all the times you got players that the league's just like, the league tells you you're retired because you're not getting signed by anyone.
I think that the NFL is the one place where you do see that a lot. I mean, look at Patrick Willis. He just went to the Hall of Fame. He stopped at the top of his game. You know, you've got Megatron. You've got guys that now see the damage that the NFL can put on the body. And they're like, look, I got other things going on. I love football. I love the game. But they see the Earl Campbells in a wheelchair. They see the guys that gave their body to the sport. And they realize a lot of these guys are smart enough to say, hey, if I stop early, I got all that with me, but I still have a full life ahead of me. And I'm not going to be one of those guys that's hobbling around 5 years after I retire.
Yeah.
Give him credit. I mean, this is a guy that's still at the top of his game at, what is he, 34 years old right now?
Yeah.
Like this is a very long and full career that he's had, and he is still at the top of his game. He has done a fantastic job of holding up until this point. You don't see him hobbled. Obviously, he's an Iron Man on the field. Like he's getting out while the getting out's good, and I can't say that there's anything left that I would like to see from him. Like I want to say happy to see him go. Again, it's much more of a sense of relief, but like I'm happy for the guy. I'm happy he's going out on top and on his terms.
Did you guys listen or hear the clip from New Heights where he's talking about the way he went out and the fact that it was pretty disappointing, and he was talking about how he really feels that strongly that the Eagles are going to have a really great season next year, and the Eagles are going to have a great bounce back season. How much did it hurt when you heard him saying the Eagles and not we? It hurt. I'm not going to lie. When he was like, yeah, I think the Eagles are going to do great, I was like, no. It's we are going to do great, right? Like, I think we're going to go out there and do great. Not the Eagles. You are the Eagles, man.
I think a part of him is always going to be connected to the Eagles, regardless of if he's suiting up on Sundays or not. But at the same time, I think he's just trying to get into the mindset of retirement.
Yeah.
I
get why he's doing it, but it just it hurts me hearing it. It hurts me hearing him to call them, the Eagles. I'm like, no. You're the Eagles, man. It's your team.
Still holding out hope for training camp.
No, he's unfortunately and not unfortunately, he's hanging it up. And I mean, I think we just opened the floor for everybody. Just give their little 10, 15, 30-second goodbye to Kelce as he so deserves, because he's obviously a longtime listener, big time fan. I was at training camp, talked to him. He tells me he tunes in every single week. We love that. Little facetious there, but did have the opportunity to talk to him. Well, half of my face didn't work, but the other half was working just fine. But Jason, can't thank you enough for the 13 years, brother. You literally epitomized what it meant to be a Philadelphian, what anybody ever wanted out of a Philadelphia athlete. You always knew exactly what to say and exactly what the fans meant when they booed and what they meant to the whole entire city when they cheered you. And wish you nothing but a happy, healthy retirement. I understand you're going to be making a boatload of money doing stuff on TV, and they're going to be lucky to have you.
Look, man, my favorite player my entire life has been Brian Dawkins, just because of what he embodied, how hard he played, what the energy he brought, what he brought in the locker room, on the field, off the field, and just leaving it all on the field. I couldn't ever think of a better athlete or a Philadelphia Eagle that I loved. And then Jason Kelce came along. And I'm not saying he tops Doc. I'm saying the fact that there's even a 1A and 1B conversation with me right now shows you the impact Jason Kelce had. I mean, we're talking about centers back in the day used to be these behemoth, huge, absolutely refrigerator men. 6'5", 300 plus pounds, just, a huge man, snap the ball, stand there and block. Kelce redefined the position. I don't care what you say. I don't care if you say we're being homers on this podcast, but he was called an undersized center with quick feet. And look what he did in the run game and the pass game, pulling the best screen center, the best pulling center, the best, zone blocking center, you name it. Literally of all time. He redefined the position, and he redefined to me where my fandom is with the Eagles. So salute 62. I hope it's not the end, but if it is, we loved every second of it.
Yeah, I don't know if there's much that I can possibly say that hasn't already been said 1,000 times over. I just want to thank Jason for perfectly encapsulating what it means to be a Philadelphian, right? Drafted in the 6th round, doesn't matter. He struggled throughout his first couple of years in the league. He stuck with it. He got better each and every year. He put the tape out there that was showing that he was willing to hustle and work his ass off, whether it be, completely off cameras, or if he's pulling and sprinting 40 yards down the road down the field, to block a safety, to block a linebacker time after time. I just want to thank him for being the perfect example of what every single athlete in Philadelphia should strive to be.
Yeah, perfectly said. Perfectly said. Matt, you have any thoughts? I know you're a little bit younger guy in the group, but he's got to be an all-timer.
Yeah, I mean, my appreciation for him goes beyond just the sport of football, because as a young journalism student growing up in this new generation of media, I think what he's doing is revolutionizing the connection between sports and journalism, and especially sports and media, with what he's doing with his podcast. And I think, what he's done to the game of football, obviously we can sit here and talk about how good of a football player he is. He's a first ballot Hall of Famer. But I think what he was able to do with his podcast has grown the sport of football so big, and I think that can't be understated.
No, I mean, he's truly an entertainer, and he's pretty much excels in anything he does. Joe, you've been, no insult, it's just factual. You've been on this earth a little bit longer than us. You've seen, you've seen some players. You've seen some of the most legendary Eagles, in their prime. Obviously, we're not talking like the 1960s world champion, and everything.
No,
but
just missed that one.
But you've seen a lot of great football players. Where does Jason Kelce rank amongst the players you've seen, in, like, as best as we can, holding out recency bias?
Yeah, I'd say easily, of what I've seen live, top 4. I mean, I absolutely positively love Jerome Brown, because he was a total what if, and he was phenomenal when he played. Reggie White was in a league of his own, and also Brian. But other than those 3, I think he's probably the most perfect embodiment of the city of Philadelphia I think I've ever seen. Of all of them, he's the most perfect. He's a guy, walk on in college, basically 7th round pick, played with Chip Kelly, told him he's too small, he can't cut it. He built up through hard work, lunch pail guy, and he got to the top of his game. I mean, if that's not a true Philadelphia story, even though he's from Ohio, I don't know what is. And just watching him play and how he motivates people. And he's one of these guys who I've had the good fortune of meeting a few times. And he's one of these guys that does not let you down. He does not let you down. He gets out of his way. He does things that are not for the cameras, but he does things. My daughter is in love with him, and he has never let her down. And to me, that is the best thing he's ever done.
Oh, yeah.
That's what, to me, matters the most. He cares about his family, and he cares about my family. And that's what I love about it.
No, I mean, like, obviously we were at training camp this year, and I was working it as a paramedic and everything. And he was a guy that would always come by. Hey, how we doing out here? Give a few seconds to talk to everybody. Anybody that came up to him, he'd, give him a smile and all, and talk to him and give him the time of day. And then you watch him after practice where he pulls his family out into the field, and he's taken all of the extra pads, all the extra, dummies and everything out there. He's building a fort for his kids, and he's throwing the football with them, and he's having, they're running around and catching. I mean, just all-time dad, all-time Philadelphian, all-time center. And he's going to kick ass in whatever he does after this. So, looking forward to seeing what he does in his role with the Eagles, as I know he's going to be having some kind of connection with the organization, or if he just goes fully right into broadcasting. But he's gonna succeed in wherever he does. And then I'm gonna throw this up to you all. Sean and I kind of talked about this. We'll give our opinions on it as well. Lastly, on the Kelce debate, 62. Is that a number the Eagles should retire? Where do you guys fall in all that?
I mean, you kind of have to, but you're running out of numbers here.
Yeah.
I think it kind of sucks that, like, look, I love McNabb, but, like, you retired 5. 5 is a popular number. It's a single digit. There's not many of them single digits that you could play with. So that kind of is rough right there. I get the Jerome Brown one being retired as well. Reggie, you name it. But yeah, you can, but I think we need to start redefining what numbers need to be retired. Like we're looking at minimum 10 years at this point, right? That a player needs to be with the Eagles and cement his legacy. But I would say if anybody deserves it, it's him.
Not a common number, so it is another number, but
True.
one that you can afford to retire. And number two is this city needs a speech live, and that's going to be our speech. He'll have the Hall of Fame speech, but we need ours too, and that's why he's going to get his number retired. We need to hear from him again. At least
Sean and I kind of differ.
I'm not really big on retiring numbers at all. I understand the Jerome Brown. If you are dead, if you are gone far too soon, I think that's certainly a special occasion or a certain, you can exclude that. But maybe you just put like a 5 or 10 year break on it. Like you talk about McNabb, and we've changed jersey manufacturers, we've changed shades of green. If you were to have a number 5 on the team today, it wouldn't look a thing like the number 5 that was Donovan McNabb. Like I think you could have that number on the field right now. I don't think that for a game that's going to be this popular for years and years and years, we're going to run out of numbers. So, and by the time somebody else comes around and is number 62, part of the fan base that reveres Jason Kelce is barely going to remember the guy. Like we're going to be old. We're going to be old, and we're going to be senile.
Well, we still talk about Chuck Bednarik when nobody that talks about him ever saw him play.
True.
I couldn't tell you what number Chuck Bednarik was.
60.
Thanks, guys. I learned something new today, and I'll forget it by the end of the episode.
But I'll tell you, what's a good idea though, and I'm gonna hate to compare this, but the Dallas Cowboys actually do something kind of cool, and it's with their 88, and 88 is bestowed to the best wide receiver on the team going forward for as long as he has it. You've had the Michael Irvin, the Dez Bryant, the CeeDee Lamb, that's 88. So they're not retiring that number, but they're kind of passing it down
you have to earn
to the guy that earns it. I think LSU does something like number 18. Whoever wears number 18 at LSU is considered the captain, the man. And you've had people like defensive backs, defensive tackles wear it, quarterbacks wear it. So it's like, it's an honor to wear this number. It's the captain's number. It's that position reflects, like, if I go to the Cowboys, I know, it would be an honor to wear 88. That means I'm the man in the receiver room. That means I'm the captain. So something like that, I think to Sean's point, might, replace the fact of retiring numbers,
Yeah.
Syracuse does the same thing with the number 44. Guys like Jim Brown, like Ernie Davis, Floyd Little, like those guys have all worn that number. They were considering giving it to somebody last year, Sean Tucker. He's a running back on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers now, but he entered the draft before they were going to give it to him. But.
Nice. Yeah, no, it's I'm kind of with Sean. Like if it's like, he's a legendary player, Hall of Fame caliber player, gone too soon kind of thing. Like, yeah, you can retire it, but it's like you're not going to see anybody wearing 62, whether they retired or not. Like it is going to be something that's not going to be worn for a long time. And so it's a fun debate. He obviously meets every requirement. Like he's a legendary player. He's going to the Hall of Fame. He has a championship. He's a captain forever. He spent his entire career here. I mean, he checks every box that you'd need to check to have your number retired. And it's not like a lack of, like, he doesn't deserve it. I'm just kind of with Sean. Like, I think the number retirement thing is kind of overblown. Like, it's, I don't know, just a personal opinion. But obviously that doesn't take away anything from what he's been able to do, what he did for the Eagles, what he means to this city. I mean, I can't wait to see what statue he gets, because I'm sure he's getting a statue in this city, probably in in the link.
It's got to be with the mummer suit. It's got to be.
The Eagles don't even do statues, though. Who has a statue on the Eagles?
Nick Foles.
Doug Peterson.
Yeah, Bud Light made that. That's a Bud Light statue.
Yeah, it's not an Eagles statue. No, I'm saying somebody's going to make him a statue. In Philadelphia, he's getting a statue.
He might get a bust in Canton. I don't know if he's getting a statue outside of the link though.
I don't know. We'll
You
see.
could get like a monument, or like somebody could paint something for him.
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
mean, there'll be
on
a dozen murals.
The 95 exit, yeah, off of Columbus will definitely have a mural up there, but
No, but Jason, thank you for everything you did. But he, much like he would say, the show goes on. So we got plenty of other stuff to talk about here. Obviously, sticking with the Eagles, other news coming out today. Avonte Maddox cut. He was a guy that, Coach, last year on this podcast we declared him, or we declared it 2 years ago, but we had continued saying it up until last year. That he was the best slot corner in the NFL. And I guess this was before last season, not just like last year as in this past season, like literally a calendar year ago, we were saying this. And we kind of did an about face this season, not because we don't love the guy, not because he's not super friendly with the fans, super nice guy. He shows talent, but the best ability is availability. And the guy hasn't played a complete season in 3 years, hasn't played even half of a season in the past 2 years. And when he's out there, it's been a little bit drop back in play.
Yeah, it's I mean, you have to think that injuries have caught up to him at this point.
Yeah.
Nothing like recovering from an injury and then you're playing for a new defensive coordinator and then learning a new defensive coordinator right after that. So, I mean, he had 3 different defensive coordinators or defensive coaches calling plays, whatever the hell we were running last year in Philly, in between his recovery from an injury, getting injured, and getting on the field. So I can imagine doing that and trying to learn to play and then realizing that everybody around you collectively, the rest of the defense also sucks. It's tough to even get your mind right at that point, mentally recovering from an injury, trusting your body. Doc, I'm sure you can attest to that. Planting, cutting, wondering why you're not at the full speed or jumping at the height that you once were, on top of learning all that new schematic differences and the guys around you. So I did see reports that they're potentially talking to him on coming back on a reduced deal. If that's the case, and making him compete for a roster spot or on one of the – totally for it, right? Totally for it. He's a great locker room guy. He knows a lot of the guys. And when healthy, I know that's a huge asterisk, but when healthy, has proven to be, I mean, compared to what we saw last year, pretty decent in coverage. So, look, if he's gone, I won't lose sleep over it. If he comes back on a reduced deal, I won't lose sleep over it. But I respect the fact that he's fought through all these injuries his whole career too.
Yeah, no doubt.
yeah, really tough go of things just with the back-to-back injuries. I mean, you talk about kind of leaving them out to dry, under Matt Patricia, who knows what kind of defense that was. Not to mention during the Bucs game, was he not playing safety? So, I mean, you just talk about all the odds being against them as far as just not being able to produce on the field. You mix that in with, just very little live action in a year and a half. Yeah, this was to be expected. I mean, he wasn't making a ton of money. I think he was on the books for about $2 million. But
it opens up $2 million for us, and then it opens up $5 million for us following year. He was getting at, I think, $8+ million per year.
Yeah,
maybe not that much. Maybe 6. I'll pull it up.
Okay, but for that $5 million being on the hook for that's a no-brainer. Like he certainly wasn't going to make it that long. We do have a guy in Isaiah Rodgers that's supposed to fill in quite nicely. I'm not entirely sold that when perfectly healthy, he's better than Avonte Maddox. I would venture to say he's not, but he may have improved over the last year being out of football, and it might blossom into something that we, prefer over an Avonte Maddox anyways, regardless of whether or not they're healthy.
Yeah, he was getting a little over $7 a year.
Oh, that's far too much money for a guy that can't see the field.
Yeah, it was 3 years, $22.5 million extension. So no, I agree. And it's a team that obviously is looking to be aggressive in free agency. All the reports are they're going to be very aggressive to go after some guys. Again, I'll believe it when I see it. I'll believe it, especially with specific positions that we talked about on the podcast. But yeah, he's making far too much for not being out there on the field. And we had a guy that Doc was talking about right beforehand in Isaiah Rodgers that, he sat out an entire year last year, but he was rated pretty highly the previous year that he played. And we're excited to see what he can do. He's got a good slot corner frame, 5'10", some 190. He's
But
you know,
I will say though, he's played like 90% of his snaps
yeah,
on the
outside.
outside.
Yeah.
He
Yeah,
does
when people were saying like, oh, he was rated as like, yeah, but he only played like in his career, he's only played like 100 snaps at like slot.
I think it's like 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's like 31 snaps that he's ever played there, and like I think over 90% of his snaps are outside. And
Yeah.
but the fact that he did play some slot snaps shows that he has position versatility.
Yep.
He's obviously has fresh legs because he sat out last year. He's still young. Take PFF for whatever it is, a grain of salt, really. But they had him rated as one of the best coverage corners in the league. He was like a top 5 coverage grade for the year, and that was inside, outside, whatever. It was just overall. So look,
And he's really young.
Yeah, it's a weapon at your disposal for Fangio to deploy. Like it's another chess piece for him to use. And who knows? Maybe he will play slot. Maybe he won't. Maybe in Fangio's defense, you're not looking at a true slot corner, but more of like an overhang defender over there with man responsibilities. Who knows? So I just think it's great to have when you talk about Keely Ringo's development and you still have Slay and then you have Rodgers in the mix. This is such a great corner class in the draft too. Yeah. And then we haven't even touched on safety yet, which the free agency class looks like we're going to have our pick of the litter. So I'm excited for Isaiah Rodgers no matter where they line him up.
Yeah, freshly turned 26. Obviously, we have a need at both slot and outside with James Bradbury, who I still believe they're going to be getting rid of. Like, obviously, people are making a lot to do about nothing about Howie being like, oh, you know, James Bradbury, we have plans for him. He's on the team. Like, what's he going to say? Oh, no, James Bradbury, oh, him? No, we're getting rid of him. He stinks. Like, no, they're going to obviously be like, oh, yeah, he's on the team. We've got plans for him. Those plans could quite literally be cutting him. Those are still plans. Like,
yeah, and he's not going to reveal. He's not going to like tip his hand, you know. Either.
No, and then like if he does try to trade him, you think any team's going to respect like, oh, hey, I want this for him? Be like, oh, really? Because in your press conference, you said that guy was a liability and that you need to get him off your team, so you ain't getting nothing for him. So like, no, I still believe he's gone. So yeah, to Coach's point, there's a big need out there. They're still far from completing their secondary with free agency and the draft coming. But Isaiah Rodgers just turned 26 in January. I think it said January 6th, so he's still very young, in his prime, fresh legs, coming off all that. So it'll be interesting to see. But Doc, while we're sitting here talking about Isaiah Rodgers coming back after a year, Avonte Maddox being cut due to a lot of injuries, we're talking about Kelce, thankfully being able to leave the sport without too many injuries. Why don't we go under the tent with DOS? The premier specialized surgery center here in the state of Delaware. Why trust anyone other than a specialist? And just kind of talk to you a little bit about, I want to kind of throw it back to Kelce and just ask you, is that something he talked about in the documentary, wanting to get out of the game before he has any serious long-lasting injuries or anything? Is this something that, you know, what can you talk about with players that you've seen come to you and say, hey, Doc, I've now been out of the sport 5 years. This is still really bothering me, that you might be able to share with us?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of trauma. I mean, this is a very traumatic sport, and I think that these things are cumulative. And I think you can play and work up for a specific goal, a season, a game, or what have you, but the effects of these traumas day after day, year after year, take their toll. And we've seen time and time again, you have these people coming back after 5 years and they're having difficulty walking, or they've had 5 or 6 knee operations, or they've had other issues. And I think that people see that. I mean, with the media, everybody sees how everybody is. There's such open communication. So it's been recognized by the NFL that this is a traumatic sport, not only in the body, but in the mind. And I think a lot of people, that's scary. You say, okay, now I've had head trauma. I collide with somebody every play. What's the one that tips me off and gets me in trouble? And I think also he has other interests and other things that are going to be you're going to be something he's going to do for the rest of his life. And I think he wants to go through the rest of his life relatively unimpaired. He's had great success in the NFL. I think he's just at the point now is, do I press my luck? And this season coming up, I mean, you look at last season compared to this season, they just lost the Super Bowl. They should have won the Super Bowl. Now this year, the last 5 games were an unmitigated disaster, no matter how you want to paint it. And you go back to something that's a huge question mark. You hope it's going to be good, but you don't know. So I think at this point, it was enough of a turning point to say, you know what? I don't think the reward is worth the risk at this point in my career.
Yeah.
And it's a very mature decision, and I support it 100%. It's better
No.
to go a year early than a year too late. And I
Yeah.
think he's got his timing just right. It's a shame that his last game was such a disaster in Tampa. He should have gone off on a higher note. But you look at his whole career. I tell people, in 10 years, we're not going to remember that game. We're going to remember him as the player. And I think that that's what he is clinging to now and realizes, hey, the time is right.
Yeah. No, it's a great point. And sticking there with the Eagles, Avonte Maddox, we were just talking about him being cut, and we speculated that it was due to his inability to stay on the field as well as the contract that he has. Is there something that, plays into that with his ability to come back and be successful still in the NFL on any team, with him having so many injuries that he's now accumulated over his career while he's still understandably young? Is it stuff that compounds injury after injury?
Well, I think, again, he becomes more of a risk to the team that puts faith in him. And it's a gamble. And, sometimes it pays off, but sometimes you have people that are just hurt. The example of that is Christian McCaffrey. Every year in Carolina, hurt. Gets in a new system, and he's basically, arguably, the MVP or Offensive Player of the Year. I think that, you have to get in the right system. But I agree. Every time you have these major injuries, these serious surgical injuries, these career or season-ending injuries, they add up. Nobody comes back 100% from every one of their injuries. So I think eventually your times start to slip. Your ability starts to slip. I still think he can be a productive player in the NFL. I just think that the Eagles were right for cutting him at the price they were going to have to pay him at. And for them, it was too big of a risk.
And Doc, let me ask you too, with the combine that just went on in the NFL, with free agency, with the draft, you're going to hear people say, I don't know about him. He's had an injury. He has an injury history. He has an injury history in football. And the more I think about it, doesn't every player that's played football at the collegiate or professional level have some type of injury history? I know there are varying degrees, right? Like multiple ACL surgeries, multiple Achilles tears. You want to stay away from those. But if we're talking about, like cracked ribs or dislocated shoulder or, like a knee cleanup or a broken ankle, are these injuries we should really be telling ourselves as fans, got to stay away from this guy? Because it's not like it's a really repeatable injury, right?
Correct, in some regards. And I think the key is, what kind of injury they had and how it was treated. A shoulder dislocation. If it was treated surgically after a one-time dislocation, their risk goes back to almost normal. If they've had multiple dislocations and then had a more invasive procedure, well, yeah, they're at higher risk. And I think the beauty of the combine is they have access to every piece of medical thing. And if they don't, they can get an MRI right on site. So they can look at any body part, and they have their own experts there. Each team has their own experts, and they can prod and probe and do what they want. So I think it's kind of like a buyer beware kind of thing. There are injuries that you can come back from, but there are others that you think, oh, this will be fine, like Sidney Jones, and you just don't get what you thought you were going to get. And I think a lot of times to me, I'd rather have an injury that's already happened, already treated, and then you've got a player and you say, okay, this is where he is. When you have one that's more acute, you kind of like, well, how's he going? I mean, Landon Dickerson is a perfect example. He was coming off his ACL when they drafted him. They don't know. I mean, he could have been a disaster. It worked out in their favor, but he's one that I was like, wow, that's a significant history. And they gambled on him, and so far it's paid off, knock on wood. But that guy had 4 major operations in college. When you see guys like that, what would make you think, in my mind as a professional, what would make you think these injuries are going to stop now that he's at a higher level with bigger athletes, faster athletes, stronger athletes? I think if you're injury prone in college, you probably are going to get injuries in the pros too. So that's definitely a red flag. And I think that keeps a lot of people away. That's why Miami didn't take Drew Brees. And sometimes you lose. But I think the law of averages is if you're injury prone in college, you're going to have injuries in the NFL.
Coach, and then what were you saying about Brandon Marsh?
Yeah, I know Brandon Marsh is making his way back. They said he's going to be ready for the regular season. He described it as quote unquote loose bodies, just to clean up, and he's going to be out 3 to 4 weeks, a little bit prior to spring training. So he's taken hits in the cage and he's been jogging around the bases. He looks fine. But what was that just kind of, when people say it's just procedural, just a cleanup, what typically is that for athletes?
Well, the question you have to ask yourself is, where are these loose bodies coming from? right? So how do you get loose bodies in your joints, in your knee, loose bodies somewhere, and they come from somewhere. And a lot of times in the knee, in the ankle, it's because there's a cartilage injury. So yeah, you can clean it up. And what happens is if these loose bodies are big enough, they become a mechanical block to motion, right? You walking, a loose body wedges between the two bones, and all of a sudden your knee gets stuck or it gets swollen, or you get these what we call mechanical symptoms. So a cleanup is essentially getting rid of those loose bodies to allow the knee to work mechanically. So short term, it's a very successful operation. The question you have to ask is, how much damage is in there, or what caused these loose bodies? Because then you talk about the long term. So it's easy to clean it up and say, hey, you're back all the time. If you look at the NFL, so-and-so had their ankle scoped. They got all these loose bodies removed. Brett Favre, other people. And yeah, it works short term, but long term, there's damage there. These loose bodies don't come out of thin air.
No, it's wonderful insight. And then lastly, the only one that's really nothing of real significance is because obviously we all, understand, you see it a ton with the new protocols the NFL has in place and everything, but Tyrese Maxey missing tonight's game with concussion symptoms. I don't know if they've officially diagnosed him with a concussion or if they're just erring on the side of caution, saying that he has some symptoms that they would rather, be cautious with than throw him out there. Is there anything that really we should be watching with that, or is as long as those symptoms alleviate and it doesn't have any other issues, he should be back on the court soon?
Well, I expect him. They entered the protocol. He got a knee to the head, which is typically not a major thing. It didn't look horrific, So I think it's just a matter of. I mean, the problem is they have back-to-back games. So in order to clear him, he's going to need a little bit of time. I fully expect him to be playing next week.
Excellent.
So
excellent. Switching over to the ice. Flyers made a what I believe to be a pretty solid trade today. Flyers trade a 2026 fifth-round pick and defenseman Sean Walker to the Avs for a top 10 protected 2025 first-round pick and Ryan Johansson, who they subsequently then waived immediately. Sean, I was talking to you about this in the gym and all. I think the biggest part of this trade that a lot of people aren't talking about is the fact that it's a 2025 first-round pick and not a 2024. A lot of NHL experts believe that the second half of the first round of the 2024 NHL draft is a complete crapshoot. As obviously like any draft pick is, but they believe that especially the 2024 class, that there's just not as much talent going through that first round. And they believe that the 2025 class is going to have a much deeper class with talent all throughout. So like these later picks in the first round, a lot of guys are like, look, there's 20 guys that could go from 15 to 35 in any random order. And they might be good, they might not be. But they believe in 2025, they're like, no, there's probably 20, 25 guys these are the top 25 guys. And so it makes that pick that much more valuable. And then obviously getting rid of a 2026 fifth round pick. Yeah, if you look back and you're wasting time and looking at the best 6th-round picks in NHL history, you'll find some big names. But that's usually not a round in which you're finding some real top tier talent in the NHL. So Danny Briere, Keith Jones going out there pretty quick, making a pretty significant trade for a guy that I thought was good, not great.
Well, I mean, on the topic of the condition of the first round pick, if it's top 10 protected, I would be shocked if Colorado.
Yeah, I mean it's the Avs. They're not going to be. They're not going to be a top 10 pick for the next 10 years, possibly.
Something would have to go severely wrong during their season for that to happen. So.
No, exactly. I'm pulling up his season-long stats here just to see. I know we brought him in just this year, didn't we? Like he was a guy.
They got him as part of the Ivan Provorov trade. I believe.
Yeah. So it's just getting even more back.
Yeah. So that trade is looking better and better as time goes on because they ended up getting 2 first-round picks for basically a defenseman that wasn't doing very much.
No, exactly. Well, I mean, look, no disrespect to Provorov. He was an absolute minutes eater. Yeah, I mean, he's got 22 points. He's a +9 on the plus-minus. It's like, obviously, you're not looking so much at points as you are, with defensemen or anything, but I'm not going to go real deep into like the Corsi ratings and everything like that. He was a solid defenseman, and he averaged a fair amount of time on ice. He was just under 20 minutes a game. So obviously he's one of your top pairing guys. He's going to have to be, replaced. Obviously Jamie Drysdale is a guy that's going to be coming back here off of injury here shortly. They have a lot of youth in that position. Cam York's now made the full-time leap into the NHL, and he's been playing pretty solidly. And then we're just going to have to see where it comes from there. Another guy that was going to be, possibly out there on the trade market, I know Tampa really wanted him, was Nick Seeler. And they ended up signing him to a pretty substantial extension, 4 years, $2.7 million AAV. And Matt, we were talking to you pre-recording, like talking to all of our sources, we all think he was going to get substantially more money on the open market.
Yeah, I mean, you look at both Sean Walker and Nick Seeler, and these guys played together on a line, and just looking at their stats on those lines, they've played so many minutes together and give up 2.5 goals per 60 minutes when they're on the ice. So really good pair. I think with Seeler, his ability to block shots, especially in a John Tortorella run team, is indispensable and is something that is necessary. He actually leads the league in block shots by double digits, which is pretty crazy. And I do certainly believe he would get upwards of $3 million on the open market.
Yeah, maybe not like double, but they seemed like they got a hometown discount, got a guy that to stay here for at least the next 4 years, for a guy that's going to be one of the staples for the defensive core of this team. As like I said, a lot of this D is pretty young. And then hopefully they can get somebody to bite on a Risto trade this offseason. I would be surprised if they're able to get rid of him at the trade deadline. Who knows? Maybe they can do it, but it would probably have to be like a Shane Gostisbehere trade almost, because of how much they overpaid for him and how poorly he's been playing. They're going to probably have to give Risto and a decently high pick for a later round pick for somebody to be able to take that contract as well as that player. So we will see. Stuff to keep an eye on. Obviously, the trade deadline is not yet completely finalized. I know you said there's some larger names that have been traded. What's like some of the top 1 or 2 guys that you saw traded around the NHL?
Yes, this was really surprising. I was in class earlier and my phone was blowing up with Twitter notifications about players that were getting traded. Vladimir Tarasenko, former St. Louis Blue, champion with them in 2019, I believe. They traded him. He was on Ottawa, got traded to Florida. I think this is a big move by Florida. This is a really good depth piece for them. Can play on the top.
And of course we play them tomorrow.
I said the same thing. I said the Flyers are getting the first look at them. That makes them even more dangerous on their offense. And we know how good Sam Reinhart and Matthew Tkachuk and Sasha Barkov can be. So that's a really big one. The Oilers get him Adam Henrique. I like this trade. It's a good trade for both teams. The Ducks got a first-round pick for this, which is obviously their priority at this point. We see with them trading for guys like Cutter and
have fun with Cutter.
Yeah, so that's a good trade for both teams. And then the Rangers trading for Alexander Wenberg from the Seattle Kraken.
That's your
Kraken
team.
I do enjoy watching the Kraken. I'm sad to see Alex Wenberg go. He's been there since the start of their team, and I'm pretty sure he just reached 100 points with the team a few weeks ago, which is kind of sad now that he's getting traded, but they get a good return there. So, so those are the big names that have been traded today.
Obviously, some rumors still circulating out there. I'd be surprised if Flyers were done. They're going to be kind of like an addition by subtraction at the deadline, I'd imagine. I certainly don't see them as stone cold sellers, but I would imagine they're going to be trying to continue to get some young talent or some high draft picks for guys and see if they can get rid of maybe some of their aging guys. I know it seems like they always pick up a guy and then trade him at the deadline for a 3rd or 4th round pick every single year. So there might be some, who knows, maybe 98-year-old Mark Stahl will get dealt in some kind of package for a little bit of something. But it's stuff to keep an eye on because obviously we are talking 215, and the Flyers do reside in that area code. And look, I was just at the game, just housed 8 or 9 dogs. Don't quite remember, as in quite a dog haze as that happens. Look, Dollar Dog Night, got to respect the dogs. Talking 2 and 5 is really just at the forefront of Double B, Double D. Bring back Dollar Dogs. I know Coach, he's from Florida, so he's a little bit above this kind of, dollar dog debauchery. But I'm all about it. I'm going to talk to John Middleton when I see him. We're going down there on the 31st. You see him walking around the stadium and everything. Going to give him, his respect that he deserves for the team that he's been building. I'm going to be like, John, no, come on, man. Bring him back. Double B, double D. I'm getting some shirts. We're getting some shirts made up. Probably going to have him sign it. Probably have John sign it. And then at that point, I believe that would make him contractually obligated to bring back Dollar Dogs. I'm not 100%, but I think that falls under that kind of umbrella there. But then going right over to the Phillies. Coach, you were at spring training. You got to see him live and in person. Did you see anything of note, or was it just a lot of like, hey, it's good to see the boys out there? It's kind of the same old.
Yeah, it's just good to kind of see baseball live, right? Like it was a good atmosphere. We got to sit in the outfield grass. It was pretty cool. Saw Castellanos hit an absolute tank. That was also cool. But really not much to be to gain from watching that, other than I feel like every time I either turn on spring training or that I was at the game, and again, it's spring training, so it doesn't mean shit. It looks like Kyle Schwarber cannot make contact with a baseball right now. But that's neither here nor there. Like he's swinging at pitch outs. He's making Castellanos look like he has a great eye at the plate. But other than that, that's just me being critical and weird. But spring training is spring training. It's just good to see the boys out there swinging the bat again.
Yeah. I mean, thank goodness nobody would need more at leadoff than a guy that can swing at absolutely everything, especially a guy that's known for walking. So love to hear that.
And look, what spring training is like, right? Like guys are trying stuff out. They're testing stuff. It may not be truly indicative of how the real regular season will present itself. You got guys trying new pitches, so they're going to be humming 94 mile an hour right down the middle sometimes. You got guys that are working on new swings, so this next pitch 0-2, I'm swinging no matter where it's at. So I mean, look, I get it. It's a funny observation,
Oh, exactly. Doc, you're muted, by the way, if you were trying to say something.
I had a quick question. Do you guys feel that having the World Baseball Classic helped or hindered players going into the season?
I don't think it could have helped.
We saw nothing but negative come from the World Baseball Classic. I mean, those guys loved playing for it, but I mean, we had Trey Turner slumping like he's never slumped before in his life, and
Suarez
then we had Ranger with forearm pain coming into the season. It's great, but I'm relieved that it's not this year.
So you'd be all for getting rid of it?
I didn't say that. I understand it's an international game. This means a lot to a lot of different people. I am a Philadelphia sports fan, right? That is my first and foremost. I understand things in baseball are much bigger.
Not a big USA guy, huh?
I like Team USA, but ask me how that went. Like I could have cared a little bit less, but not much less last year. I was just ready for the MLB season to begin. So I understand a lot of these guys, the Venezuelan team, a lot of Central American teams, they all care a heck of a lot more about it than I do. So, but I'm glad it's not this year.
I don't think they use the pitch clock rules, if I'm remembering correctly.
The World Baseball Classic? No,
I don't think they did, and that could have been another thing where, like, if they had been in spring training more, it could have benefited that just because the speed of play is so different. And even like this year, I'm pretty sure pitch clock's even quicker. So
no, they left it exactly the same. And I don't have a real problem with the pitch clock. I just have a problem with where it's currently set. I think if you add 2 to 3 seconds to both scenarios with nobody on and with a runner on, you still achieve a faster game, but it lets it breathe just enough to where it doesn't feel rushed. It's something like 15 seconds with nobody on, 18 seconds with a runner on. I think if you did 18 seconds,
it might be the other way.
Either way. I think it's if you do 18 and 20 or 18 and 21, I think that gets the game in a much better spot but they seem happy with where it's at. Players had a full year to get used to it, so it appears, at least for now, that it's here to stay. Hopefully Nola, this is even near Nola though, so obviously it won't matter what the pitch clock is, as he's going to be a Cy Young candidate. So hopefully he can just go out there and start just dotting up the strike zone and doing his thing. But Doc, I wanted to save this question for you until we really got into the Phillies. Obviously the big news here, we're going to spend probably the rest of the episode talking about the Zach Wheeler extension, but he is 33 years old. And he is a guy that really relies on the fastball. And we just brought in a guy not too long ago in Noah Syndergaard that was, he was essentially a guy that relied on the fastball, that lost his fastball. And we all saw what that was. Is in your experience treating these athletes and all up in their mid-30s and everything. I understand he's not quite there yet, but we have seen a notable decrease in velocity the past couple of seasons. Is this something that we should really be trying to strike in the next year or two? And now we're just, hey, we had to sign him for 3 years in order to keep him, and those last 2 years might be a struggle? Or what are your thoughts with him aging and that high velocity arm?
I think it all depends. I think you really have to look carefully at their mechanics. You see how he goes. You got guys like Nolan Ryan who could pitch probably today. I don't know if he passed away, but pitch hard. And I think you have to kind of do that tightrope between, okay, are we going to still have a good pitcher or one that falls off the cliff? And I think a lot of times it does boil down to mechanically and seeing if they are slowing down, they have to kind of reinvent themselves a little bit and kind of work it out. The one thing they do have as they get older is experience and know how to pitch and learn how to pitch better or smarter, instead of trying to overpower. And I think if you can do that, you can still be successful. I think if you just go on sheer strength and talent, it's going to break down. I mean, probably one of the most unnatural things a human body can do is throw a ball 100 miles an hour. It is a destructive process, and do that over and over again, eventually it takes its toll. The problem is we don't have a clock saying, okay, is he almost going to blow up or is he full? And, as far as last year, I mean, yes, there may be some loss in velocity, but he's still pitching extremely well. He's one of the top pitchers in baseball. And I think that hopefully I think the gamble is we hope we can get him for 2 good years and maybe one kind of holding it together. What we don't want to see is sometime this year, him just totally breaking down.
No, exactly.
There's no indication to say that's going to happen.
No.
That's the worst fear.
No, exactly. He's 34 by June. His birthday is May 30th, I believe. So it's like, and look, we have him for 4 years. It's a 3-year extension on top of the 1 year we had remaining on his contract. So he's going to be with the Phillies until, he's 38.
Yeah.
And so look, you see guys like Justin Verlander out there still absolutely doing it at that age. But that's usually he's hurt. And that's usually kind of a unicorn type of scenario. Open the floor up. 3 years, $126 million extension. How are we feeling about it?
I feel fantastic. I mean, this is a guy who's one of the best postseason pitchers in MLB history, right, over the course of his career.
Certainly a lot better than Verlander.
It's a lot better than Verlander. You talk about Syndergaard, who tore he had Tommy John, he tore his UCL and was nothing like he used to what he was even the year prior, the 2 years prior that he pitched. This is a guy in Wheeler that was hurt, back in 2019? We got him for an original discount, right, over from the Mets, and he has outplayed that year after year after year. It's not something that velocity has really been much of a concern with. Yes, he's lost 2-3 miles an hour off of his fastball. You talk about reports about working on another pitch in spring training.
He's working on the splitter right now.
Exactly. So, and he went out there, it's obviously a very small sample size, but what did he have? 4 strikeouts in 2 innings in his first real pitching since he signed that extension. I mean, I'm over the moon with this guy. He has been one of the best free agent signings in a very long time for this franchise. I mean, in the last 45 years, would you say?
Yeah.
I've just been over the moon with the guy. I so want him to retire as a Philly.
I echo what Sean says. I will say I would put him at number 2 behind Bryce as far as the free agent signings, best free agent signings, but he's right there. I mean, if you look at baseball as a whole, we know it's the most metric-driven analytic sport on the planet, and there are so many metrics. WAR, I believe he's in the last 3 to 4 years in WAR, wins above replacement. He's the second best pitcher in baseball behind Garrett Cole. In F-WAR, in Fangraph's version of it, it's Zach Wheeler is the number one pitcher in all baseball over the last 3 to 4 years. And Deshaun's point too, big game wheels. If I have one game where I want someone pitching for my team in those red pinstripes, love Nola, love Ranger, love any of the other guys, give that ball to Zach Wheeler. And I am sitting back on the couch comfortable just saying, offense, you need to barely show up today because we got that guy on the mound. Okay. I'm happy about this because when you break it down, it's 1 year left on his deal plus the 3 other ones. So it's a 4-year deal, and he's still not even like a top 5 paid pitcher. And I just told you how he's ranked as the number 1 or number 2 in about so many different categories. So like Sean said, I'm ecstatic about it. You have 2 aces and Ranger, who would be a number 2 on any other team out there. You got your top 3 horses, man. Let's go.
And he robbed Ranger of a Gold Glove last year.
Zach did?
Yeah, he's a Gold Glove winner last year.
There you go. There you go.
Just guy just keeps on giving. No, I'm excited. Like, obviously, Christopher Sanchez, as this is the official Jeff Hoffman and Christopher Sanchez podcast, is going to be a lockdown number 4, who'd probably a number 1 on 30 other MLB teams. So,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no doubt. So excited to see him. Jeff Hoffman probably going to win the Cy Young out of the bullpen. You know, first do that in a while. So really looking forward to all that.
Is this sarcasm?
No, Jake's got us going 160.
Better not be.
Yeah, 161-1, and we lose the first game surprisingly. So we go on quite the tear.
That's a win streak right there, baby. That's
a hell of a streak.
Quite the tear to.
Can we have someone look that up to see if that would be a record?
No, I think another team went 162-0. But
nice.
Look, a lot of excitement. We're going to be down at the ballpark on the 31st on Easter Sunday, cheering on our Fightins against the Braves. Obviously, we're going to be giving away tickets thanks to our friends over at DOS, and we're going to be putting out a giveaway for that so you can see how you can win. Obviously, all of our giveaways are all free to enter, free to win. So excited to get some more fans out into the stadium enjoying these games. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Any other thoughts, gentlemen?
Real quick question, and perhaps not even a particularly quick one. Zach Ertz signs with the Commanders, right? Does Zach Ertz signing with a NFC East rival this early in the offseason, does that taint his legacy as a Philadelphia Eagle?
I mean,
No.
I certainly don't think so.
The Commanders haven't even really been a rival recently.
Good
right?
point.
Like they're younger brothers. Like they're nothing.
More of a rival than the Giants have been, but
Yeah.
I'm not. So originally I thought no, you're right, but there's a part of me that thinks it's only the 6th of March. Like, it's not even like we went the offseason to see if any other teams had interest in him. Like, he clearly jumped at the first team that said, hey, we'll give you some playing time, buddy. So for this kind of stings a little bit more than I thought it would, guys.
I mean, $5 million for Zach Ertz.
$5 million's a lot for
That's
Zach
a lot
Ertz
of
at
money
this stage of his
for
career.
Zach Ertz.
Yeah, I think this is just him. We
He's
talked about
33
Kelce
years
making.
old.
Yeah, we talked about Kelce making a family decision, right? This is a decision for his family saying, $5 million, I am not going to get that anywhere else. And, oh, yeah, by the way, if I wait to see if I can, I may not be on any team because people will get signed, people will get drafted. Yeah. He had to do this before the draft and before free agency if he wanted any, type of contract.
Value,
so he did it. And look, it's not the Giants, it's not the Cowboys, it's not the 49ers. So I think, at the end of the day, I'm like, it's just Washington.
And he gets to play at FedEx Field. Are you kidding me? That's everybody's dream to play.
Not Jalen Hurts.
I mean, you talk about taking that payday though. Couldn't you have just like set up a podcast last season? He'd be good to go.
That's true.
Look,
He would be the only notable
ours anytime.
Eagle, only notable former Eagle to have a podcast, so it would make sense.
Yeah.
He'd have the corner locked down. The
Yeah,
market corner.
No, exactly. It's a very undersaturated market. No, I wish him luck. I hope I hope he's healthy. I'll put it that way. I hope he's healthy. And that's kind of my thoughts there. Sure. Have fun,
Get
Zach.
that last check, Zach. Just get
Yeah.
that last check, man.
Exactly. He'll be 34 by the by week 8 of the season, not even by like week 5, 6 of the season. So get him out there. Let him get that last check. Pretty good payday. And I'm sure he'll retire an Eagle. I'm sure we'll give him a 1-day contract.
Yeah, for sure.
And he'll retire an
sure.
Eagle. We retire 86. We retire that number.
I mean, do we give him a standing ovation when he comes to Philly?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If he's introduced, or if he makes like a 5-yard catch, or if he's a captain, yeah. But like, not just randomly. I don't think. I think if they, say, and the captains for today's game are number 86, Zach Ertz, I think you'll get a loud applause for what he's.
Now, I do want to bring up. I was fairly surprised when I saw this. I posed on our Twitter, like, what is your Mount Rushmore for Eagles players? Like, obviously, just following the Kelce retirement, because I don't think a Mount Rushmore is complete without Kelce on it. There were 2 people that both had Zach Ertz on their Eagles Mount Rushmore.
He did catch the game-winning touchdown. In the
Yeah, look, and they argued he had the most, tight end receiving yards in a single season. He had the most receptions by an Eagle in a single season.
At one point, that was Irving Fryer. At one point, Irving Fryer had the most receptions, I believe, or something like that in the season.
Yeah.
Are we putting Irving Fryer up there? Like, what are we doing?
No, I look.
Okay,
I disagree that he was.
There's a reception leader amongst tight ends for 32 different teams. Somebody has to have that title. How many teams would have their tight end on their Mount Rushmore? Like 4, 3?
Kansas City.
City.
2 in Kansas City.
Might have 2 of them on there.
Yeah, seriously.
Right?
Well, Kyle Pitts has got to be in Atlanta.
New England.
No,
New
it's
England for sure.
Antonio Gates, maybe Gronk. Yeah, or are you talking Aaron Hernandez?
Oh, Aaron Hernandez for sure. Who else?
Real quick,
Gonzalez.
real quick, do you guys have any top 4 Mount Rushmore that you have on there, Coach? I know you posted yours on Twitter.
Yeah, I think mine was the same as somebody posted.
Yours was kind of like the consensus. You had what? You had Dawkins, White, Kelce, and who was your 4th?
Foles was my 4th.
And Foles, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's the answer.
That's mine. That's me personally. Like, I could throw some other guys in there, but like that's mine for sure.
I think most people that are around our age, give or take, that really grew up with this generation of Eagles are going to say something similar, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
We had a lot of Shady McCoy's answers, and I was like, look, love Shady. He is not a Mount Rushmore Eagle.
I don't know, maybe that Foles pick, maybe you go with a guy like Donovan, right?
Yep.
Who was the face of the franchise for a decade.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
right?
if I'm going another player in that pick, it's going to be a Bednarik. It's going to be Tommy.
Or
McDonald.
if you're older, if you're an
Randall.
older guy,
Randall.
right.
Like, I don't know.
So you go Randall, but you don't go Donovan. What did Randall do? I think it just depends on how old you are, right? Because you might go up at Bednarik.
All right, Doc, you're the resident old person of the podcast.
Yeah.
What's your top 4?
I'm torn. I mean, I'm definitely Reggie, Bryan, and Jason. But I think that, there's an argument to said to Randall because, in my opinion, he revolutionized the game. And it's not his fault that Buddy didn't give a lick about the offense and didn't help him one bit during his tenure. I think he revolutionized games. He was one of the most exciting players to ever play the game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Donovan has a lot. I mean, I think Donovan had a great career. It's just he just never got over his insecurities. He failed us at the worst time in a horrible way. I mean, that Jacksonville Super Bowl just still kills me just to even think about it. But, he had a lot of problems he got us a lot of playoff wins. I mean, I guarantee his playoff record is way better than Peyton Manning's, who's a consensus first-time Hall of Famer. But I bet you his playoff numbers are way better, Donovan's, in terms of record. Yeah. But he failed the big games, So, and I think everybody has that sort of, especially now that you see the success that Andy's having in Kansas City, you're like, why not us? What's wrong? Yeah. Why didn't you do this for us? And I think a lot of people resent Donovan because of that whole stigma. So it's hard, that fourth one for me, because there's a lot of people I'd say.
Yeah, the fourth one's the toughest.
Yeah, it's a tough one. But, it depends on my mood. Sometimes I'm like Donovan, then I'm like, screw that guy.
But Foles isn't in there for you?
Foles had 3 good games. One happened to be the Super Bowl.
Yeah, one happened to be the best Super Bowl performance in NFL history.
Correct. But I'm just saying, it's like anybody can have a great game, and he had and that game against the Raiders where he scored 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, those are the
2 of them were kind of lucky, but
yeah, I mean, I think Nick Foles is a definite recency bias, and I think he's the one that got us over the hump. He did what Donovan couldn't. The one thing Donovan, Carson, Randall couldn't do. So I'm fine with Nick Foles. Believe me, I love Nick Foles, but I'm just saying, if you look at his body of work, it's not that big. It's very important, but it's not big.
What is big?
Something's big.
No, listen. He had the biggest one out there. Jason confirmed it in his speech. He had the biggest one out there.
I've heard from many sources that is not just a rhyme.
Yeah,
that's not just because it rhymes.
Yeah.
All right.
Well, give it to him. Give it to him.
Sure.
Just based purely on that. Just dick size.
Exactly.
He goes right.
Just on
that bumps him to number 1.
Yeah, yes. On girth and length alone, he's up there.
Yeah.
Final thoughts. Anybody, Sean?
I don't know.
All right. Matt, final thoughts?
Pretty sure the Sixers are now losing, so
they are
not great.
Coach, final thought.
We didn't touch on this on any other episode, but I'm pretty sure Talking 215 is Team AJ Brown. Screw all the media rumors and everything that radio station does to make shit up. Go Birds, go AJ.
I will say, since we started this whole boycott, I legitimately have not listened.
Good. I love it.
I found myself having country music on over WIP, and
it's despicable. And we don't even talk about today about making up being in a gang and getting Deshaun Jackson cut from the team. We don't even talk about that. So, yeah, that's still part of that whole thing.
Yeah.
I feel like A.J. Brown, though, did just mentioning the media kind of let every single fan off the hook, because there's a large contingent of this fan base that was critical of AJ, and for not so terrible reasons, very understandable reasons. And when he said, "Oh, the media sucks," 100% of this fan base said, "Yeah, you know what? You do suck. You're the ones that are saying all the bad stuff. It's not us. The fans are great." I cannot believe the 180 that like 30% of the fan base has been like, "Yeah, you know what? AJ Brown, perfect. Don't go anywhere. I hate the media. I would never say anything bad about you, Arthur Juan." Not me.
So real quick, speaking of the fans, I posted also who is the first person you want the Eagles to sign in free agency. The number 1 answer was CJGJ. Shocking.
No way.
Shocking to me from a fan base that gets spited so greatly over tiny things, where CJGJ literally said, "Fuck them fans. They suck." And now you're like, "Come on back, please, please, please."
But yet, all Darius Slay says on a podcast, "Yeah, the fans boo the shit out of you. It can be tough to play for that, but they boo hell or high water. I love the fans, but they boo." And everybody was like, "Get him out of town."
Darius is a captain? How dare he say that? Some captain
he said that we boo during games. Do you boo during games? Yeah, all the time, 24/7.
Yeah.
But that player can't say we do. He didn't say, "I can't deal with this." He didn't say he got a similar contract from the Baltimore Ravens, the same exact contract. And he said, "No, I'm staying in Philly because I like it here. I love the fans." But CJGJ says, "Fuck the fans, fuck all y'all." And all of a sudden, welcome back. But if Slay says, "Yeah, they boo a lot. They boo during games," it's crazy. No, don't you say that.
Yeah, he said he clearly was joking.
He
was.
I
think it's just hilarious.
Yeah, uproar from the fans were like, "Get him out of here!" And I'm like, "What? Do
He's
y'all listen to words?
crying.
Do y'all even listen
Yeah.
to like the full audio of things, or do you
No,
take
they
one
listen to
little clip
Joe
and be like,
DeCamera
"That's it"?
saying that he thinks that Darius Slay will be cut.
Who's
I just
gonna be
can't believe that the entire fan base was like, I want CJ GJ because he's a dog. He's so tough. And it's like he literally did get his chain snatched and punched in the face in game and did not fight back. So I don't know where this came from. He has an attitude and he dislikes the fans. Like, get it out of your heads. I don't want this guy. Slay was joking and can take it. Like, he clearly is just laughing about it after the fact. Like, who has a bad day at work and just like mulls on it for months and months on end afterwards? Like, he can laugh about it if he wants to, guys. Like, just like every single one of us have done. He was with a former teammate. He was with an old buddy of his. Like, guys, stop the hate boner for Darius Slay and stop riding CJ GJ. He's done very little for you outside of shunning you and telling you you're all a pain in the ass.
I think CJ is Pat Bev, by the way. I think
Oh,
that's
yeah.
who he is. I think he's
Yeah,
Pat
but
Bev. I think
Pat Bev was
he's-
made for Philly. Pat Bev's, we loved Pat Bev for the brief amount of time we had him here. CJ is just a dick.
He's if Garrett Stubbs was a starter, like he's the vibes guy. He's totally just like.
Except
he's gonna
that
get you
apparently he
crunk.
wasn't liked that much in the locker room.
I mean, yeah, but like you got to think. I don't know. And we're going off on tangents here. We were on final.
I still need Doc's final thought, and then I need to shut it
got us
down.
all riled up here, but we need fans to be smarter. Honest to God, we need fans to be smarter. Because to Sean's point, you listen to that shit on the radio, and you're like, "Oh, they're right." AJ Brown got mad on the sideline, like 99% of football players do. Get him out of here. Shut up. Shut up with all that.
Doc, final thought.
I think we will never hear the song until Embiid comes back. They just lost.